Chapter 3, The Case. Choir spent the morning heading towards the focal point of the blast atop the hill. It would normally take a healthy person under a chime to reach its peak. Today, however, it took him until the noonday chime. The moment he stepped from his friend's business, Choir was forced into work. At least the saloon was flame retardant by design and great expense. The bulk of the town that ore mining built mainly consisted of sturdy wood. Only a few of the rich populace constructed from bluestone. Terrans, elementalists that could control earth, were rare in these parts, and the prices for their construction service exploded every cycle. Though if the construction was classified an official disaster, the government would foot the bill. Choir doubted that eventually, however. Even just after dawn, ample people traversed the wide cobbled streets, most normally headed towards the general stores in the town centre. This morning, however, the townsfolk were frantic, scampering home to protect their property from the raining flames while breathing in the choking sulphurous fumes. It took half a chime for Choir to acclimatise to the thickened air, but the humans weren't as fortunate. His exotic appearance normally drove people into unease, which was useful for his inquisitor duties. This morning, however, Choir had two factors working in his favour. The people were panicked, and his naturally ashen skin blended with the roving ash clouds. All people saw today was his badge of office and clung to him for aid and guidance. He wasn't used to it, but he thought it a nice change, at least for a short while. After chimes, helping the extinguishers extract people from burning buildings as he traversed towards the epicentre, Choir found a good place to hide and take a breath. He whistled for his constant companion, Choir, to join him. Calling her a dire wolf was a huge disservice. While she shared a similar physical structure, a stature that brought her shoulders above even the tallest person's belt and shaggy midnight hair, Choir was so much more. She jumped into the side alley between Harrod's butchery and Watter's fishmonger, where Choir crouched, leaning against the butcher's wall. The aroma was intense in spite of the sulphur, and Choir's stomach groaned, dragging people by the shirt cuff if your jaws without hurting them drained energy. She ignored her hunger as she nuzzled her snout into Choir with concern, her quilled mane folding back to avoid piercing him. Choir rubbed her flanks while draping his arm across the bony plates running down her spine. He often wondered if they shared a common ancestor, considering the articulated plates protecting his forearm, shins and neck looked remarkably similar. Choir, however, lacked the jutting spikes on Choir's right shoulder, formed like a splayed hand forcing its way free, and the tapered bone spire forming from his brow to slick back over his bald scalp. They caused no end of damage to his shirts, and he often settled on a half-draped poncho like he had today. It exposed his right side, revealing a black band that appeared like an artist flicked a thick brush across his chest. Many believed this as a tribal tattoo, but were actually markings from birth, akin the spots of a puppy. They twinned his entire body. The open poncho also made extracting the sword off his back easier, not that he figured it'd be required this morning. The duo sat together, breathing heavily through the ash, smoke and sulphur clouds. "I'm okay, Choir. It must be the smoke finally getting to me. I just need a few tocks, then we'll move on. The extinguishers can take it from here." Choir growled in response while he unstrapped his water bottle from his thigh. He took a few long sips before sharing it with her. Once particularly hydrated, Choir tapped her flanks while sitting more vertical. "All right, my dear, let's finally see what caused this bullshit." Choir barked in the affirmative. The pair hurried to the town outskirts, cutting through the canopied expanse of the stagecoach departure terminal. Large holes had burned through the wooden canopy, dotting the area below in reddish beams from the luminous clouds. Normally, there would be at least 6 stagecoaches waiting. Currently, there was only one left intact, and 2 others were smouldering heaps with their imps roasting inside their cages. The critters used from locomotion would cause debilitating mischief if unrestrained, but didn't deserve that fate. It amounted to animal cruelty, but was still a crime, and Quire added the 2 imps to the mental list of victims. He checked on the undamaged stagecoach to find its imp cage still secured within, and an earthen imp resting inside. While they could be trouble, their value was without question. Quire wondered why the little guy was left untended amidst the chaos. Its owner appeared to secure several other stagecoaches, so why not this one? The Inquisitor poked a finger inside the cage bars as the rocky imp stood and gave the critter a scratch under the square chin. It purred like loose stones rolling over each other until Quire removed his finger. He felt empathy for the imp as it rolled around its cage. He'd never really thought of them as anything other than work critters, amounting to little more than living tools. This one appeared happy, but Quire wouldn't let it starve out of its owner's forgetfulness. He scanned around for some pebbles and found a few nearby. Quire picked them up along with some dirt not filled with ash and poured them into the cage. The imp devoured the pebbles, crushing them in vice jaws before washing them down with the dirt. The meal should tide it over for the day. Before Quire turned away from the creature, its right shoulder stretched out, moulding itself into a spiky configuration identical to the Inquisitor's. He chuckled at the highest form of flattery and returned to his tasks. After confirming there was nothing else of interest in sight, Quire mentally noted the potential escape route. He wasn't certain this morning's events were deliberate or that his skills were called for, but his mind couldn't stop treating it as such. He had been at this game far too long for anything else. If this was a calculated act, a stolen stagecoach should be easy to track. He took another swig of water before continuing on. Quire jogged up the gentle slope ahead of the Inquisitor, Quire losing stamina as if every few steps were a 100-metre dash. By the time they reached the frayed edges of the paved trail, he was forced to find a sturdy rock to sit upon. His skin was almost white under the patches not covered in soot. Quire stood guard while he caught his breath, looking back towards him every few moments with clear concern. Quire could normally sprint a marathon without breaking stride or a sweat. This was far more than smoke inhalation, and they both knew it. At least this was complete stamina reversal, allowed time to take in the damage to the area. The path they walked was now at least 50 metres further west than usual. Whatever cracked the hill down drove the pieces apart and dropped the guts of the monastery into the fresh chasm. The doom-inspiring chrism glow remained within the clouds, though seemed to have receded since the first glimpsed it. Quire recognised the translucent wisps spilling over the hilltop, signifying an observer at work. Assuming you can call it actual work, Quire wasn't so sure. He took another swig from his flask and offered it to Quire. She shook her head as he stood. He seemed to need it more anyway. Quire put the bottle away and continued to the scene with his worried companion in tow.